You've done a deep dive into EQ. What is it that you've been diving into? What has changed recently for you in the way that you use it? Anything really special that you've uncovered?
Yeah, filter types has been something that's been really been such a monumental thing for me as of recently. Like, instead of doing like these hard cuts as far as slope, as far as hard slopes like low cuts and things of that nature, I found that shelving and changing the EQ type really changes the characteristics of the EQ as far as the sound of it. I've been recently doing this EQ move, which I did show in the class, where instead of doing the low cut, I started doing shelving instead to do the typical move of rolling off the lows on the of the vocal. I've been doing shelving where, so let's say for instance, I'll start at 200 hertz and then I'll start a shelf there and bring that stuff down. And it has a little bit more of a pleasing sound to me where I feel like I'm not losing as much low end. I'm retaining some of that, but at the same time, still getting rid of or attenuating, what I don't want. So when it comes to EQ, I've been finding that the shelving or the filter types, I've been putting that into my brain as far as, okay, what kind of filter type do I want to shape the sound? You know what I mean? As far as I'm concerned. So EQing with filter types has really become something that I've been really diving into, as well as relationships in certain spaces. So when I look at the mid range, I've been realizing, and of course we know, when it comes to a vocal, when it comes to a piano, those two things have probably not conflicting frequencies, but sometimes there are frequencies in that range that may be clashing.
Masking.
So I've been making sure, right, relationships, like my big thing, like I've been training my brain for more and more, is just relationships in certain frequency ranges. So I've been trying to create more separation within those relationships. Kick and bass share a similar relationship. So now I've been really being hypersensitive to the relationship in that range between the lows, the mids, and the highs, and everything that exists there. So relationships and filter types have been a big thing for me with EQs as of lately.
Got it. Yeah, I want to
Yeah.
dig into that a little bit more. So you're talking about, instead of doing big high pass filters, low pass filters and different things with a really aggressive cue or really aggressive slopes, that you're using more of shelves and different things. What's the deep why behind all of that you've found? What is it doing for you that it wasn't doing before?
You know what it is? I think that when I'm using a low cut, and I could be very wrong, right? Like, of course, I'm still learning this type of stuff as far as why. But when I'm doing a low cut, what my brain tells me is I'm literally bringing all that stuff to zero, right? I'm chopping it out, like completely getting rid of it. What I'm doing when I do a shelf is I'm lowering the volume or intensity of those frequencies, but the harmonics are still a part of the entire thing. So what I'm real, and this is how, see, me learning about the saturation in harmonics is coming full circle for me, because I'm realizing that sometimes even if you add, let's say, harmonics, or you boost 30,000 hertz on some EQs, right? Like that really high stuff you can't hear, we notice a difference coming down. Like every move you make with an EQ has an overall effect with the phase and how things shift. So what I'm noticing is, instead of getting rid of it completely by just limiting it a little bit in a mix, I'm still retaining some of that harmonic characters that make an overall tone for the vocal or for the sound, without really just getting rid of the harmonics completely, to now have the vocal kind of be a whole different thing, or the sound be a whole different thing. So I think from a phase standpoint, and from a saturation and from a harmonic standpoint, I'm realizing, hey, I want to retain some of those harmonics that I like, but I just want to limit some factors within it. So I don't want to completely just get rid of it anymore. So that's in my place where
That's
you see
interesting.
how everything, my fundamentals, I'm rooted in that fundamental, but now the quick fixes and things I'm learning, I'm organizing my brain in a place I'm like, oh, wow, this kind of makes sense. You know what I mean? And I'm getting answers to things. So yeah, that's where I'm at with it.
Yeah, for number one, a lot of people don't know, but when you're doing those big slopes and stuff, it can impart, even on a linear phase or something like that setting, that it can impart some phasing issues,
Yeah.
first
Yeah.
off. And then
Yes.
you're also saying there's something you're finding pleasing that has to do with harmonics, that when you don't cut it all the way out, when you use a shelf, is retaining some of that, something. There's some sort of character or depth or something that's not being
Yeah.
taken out or chopped out that you feel is
Right.
like enhancing a quality about the vocal.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm noticing it. Like it's still giving a quality that I like with still solving the issue that I'm trying to solve. Like I noticed that. There's a big difference when I do that low cut, that's hard, versus when I do that shelf. Same thing for the high end. When I do high cuts and stuff like that, sometimes just bringing that stuff down retains some beautiful harmonics still, but I'm still getting what I want out of it. Like it's an interesting new kind of filter move that I've just been realizing. And you know what the funny thing, the SSL, like the SSL console, when they're doing low frequency cuts, that's what that thing is doing. When I put my EQ curve, that's why I said what made me really shift my mind was I realized I was going to the SSL EQ just to make low cuts. And I said, wait a minute, let me see what this filter is doing, because I'll do the same thing with my other plugin and it doesn't sound the same. And when I looked, I seen it was doing a shelf, not a low cut. And it made me go, oh my gosh. And the big boys, or the guys that have been doing this for years, girls and guys, they were doing this for years. So it made me realize now I've took that information and just brought it into my workflow in the digital side with the fat filter, as opposed to doing low cuts. Now I'm just doing like an SSL style low frequency cut now. Like I said, learning those tools and just taking, oh, okay, that's why I like it. That's what really tricked me. That's what made me go, oh snap, that's what it is. You know what I mean?
That's
like the analyzer.
Yeah, that's really interesting. We'll have to try that for sure. Very cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
When it comes to masking, what do you think people are doing wrong there in cleaning up masking problems or these competitive problems that you're talking about with EQ?
I think what people are maybe doing that's counterproductive is, I've heard Jason Joshua say this, is pick a winner, right? Where it's choose what sound source you want to exist in that particular range. As far as, okay, I got a competition between my guitar and my piano. All right, I'll listen to the piano and I'm like, I really like what it sounds like at that 400 hertz on the piano, but I really like the upper mids or the 900 or so with the guitar. It's like kind of finding, okay, I'm gonna cut you here and leave you alone here. Maybe not even boost the other. It's just more or less, let me just make a little bit of space for that, as opposed to cutting and boosting. Because I think a lot of us do the cut and boosting where it's, okay, I'm gonna cut there and boost in that same range. Sometimes you don't even have to do that. Sometimes you can literally just cut one and there's your separation. I got my separation that I wanted. So I'm very mindful of, just because I cut there doesn't mean I'm probably gonna boost in the other. Sometimes I'll just move that out the way and increase the volume on the one that I moved out the way to make it sound a little louder, but now it's more out of the way of whatever the other sound source was. So that's something that I've been doing a lot more too, as far as the masking issue. And then obviously the fab filter collision feature has been just incredible in training my ear to, oh, that's what that frequency range sounds like when it's masking. Okay, cool. You know what I mean? And moving and stuff like that. So that's where my brain has been with masking for the most part.
Yeah, that's cool. I think I've seen a similar trend with people who are maybe not being aggressive enough with the EQ move. Because they're thinking, they're soloing it. And they're EQing and they're going, oh, that's starting to sound bad. So they pull it back and they're leaving some in there that really should be taken out, but they don't really understand the concept of when you play the two together.
It's wonderful.
All the frequencies are there.
Yeah.
It'll sound as if both are full almost. That's what our ear does. It fills in the space so acoustically. So what happens is people aren't being aggressive enough sometimes in choosing. What you said was like, what part do you want in which space? What needs to live here? Get rid of everything that doesn't need to live there. Make room for other stuff, but just like hard cuts, like massive EQ cuts, I think a lot of time is the move, and a lot of people aren't being brave enough to actually do that.
That's true. Yeah. One thing I'll say, man, I'm not afraid, bro. Like sometimes you'll see EQ like, what is that? What are you cutting? It's don't care. I'm like, it sounds better. I've also gotten the confidence in that stage in my career to just do things and go, that would probably be considered crazy to some, but hey, it sounds better. Like sometimes I'll go to, on a vocal, let's say I got some harshness, dude, I'll go to 3.5K and I'll rip a frequency out. I'm talking about 12 dB, a nice surgical cut, and I'll listen, I'm like, I like it. I've gotten to that place too, where I'll be aggressive sometimes if it serves the song better. I think you know what's funny? I think there's another side of this coin where some people have been taught a certain way, right? And they get very stuck in the way, that's not how you're supposed to do that. You know what I mean? You're not supposed to make these big cuts like that. You're supposed to leave the naturalness. I'm like, I hear you. But in some cases and scenarios, if it sounds better, my man, I'm going that direction. You know what I mean? To me, if it feels better, then I just did something unorthodox, and it is what it is. You know what I mean? I'm very big on that too. So I think you're right in that regard, where it's sometimes you're not aggressive enough, which I don't think people hear. I don't think people hear that enough.
They're thinking of the technique and not listening.
That's it. You're just not listening. You're just thinking of the technique, and that's all. You're doing this the wrong way. You know what I mean? Listen, now apply the technique.
100%. Thanks for watching this clip from the Reverse Engineer podcast. If you want to watch the whole podcast, just click right here. It will take you to the full version, or you can listen to it wherever you listen to your podcasts. Also, if you have any questions about mastering.com, just go ahead and search mastering.com. You can learn all about what we do over there for the students that we work with and the community that we're trying to build. Thanks again for listening.